Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? What is up? Welcome to the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB network. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Hope everyone out there has had a great Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever you're listening to it. Right now, as recording, it is Monday. Hot one here in the Southland. We've hit peak summer heat, I think, as it's going to be hot for a while. I was actually down in San Diego on Saturday for a wedding. And even in San Diego, in La Jolla, it was like 86 degrees during the wedding at 4 p.m. on Saturday. So still hot there. It cooled off at night, as every beach community does. But we are in peak heat. So with that, speaking of peak heat and raw power, my man, Ryan Skinny T. Anderson. What's up, brother? How we doing?
Doing all right. A couple of you guys have reached out to me via Twitter, and I apologize I have not gotten back to you, but I will, I promise. And the guy I owe a t-shirt to, you're priority number one.
Ooh, okay. Which t-shirt? One of ours or?
Yeah, he picked out the Aaron Donald t-shirt. He answered one of my trivia questions correctly.
Okay, nice. All right, hats off. Shout out to you, good sir. Aaron Donald shirt coming your way. But yeah, peak heat. New nickname for you. Another one. Add it to the resume.
I love it.
I
don't know. I didn't think a skinny tea or noodle juice could be topped, but peak heat. I mean, that's a good one.
Peak heat. Yeah, there we go. So, how was your weekend? I know you were at camp on Saturday, so obviously we'll touch a little bit. We're going to start with, unfortunately, the rough scrimmage or joint practice with the Chargers that happened yesterday on Sunday. So we'll start with that, but see if we can tie in Saturday. But just overall, how was the weekend?
Yeah, not bad, man. When it gets this hot, you just stay inside as much as possible. Maybe hit the movies or turn on Netflix for yourself. So, I did some catching up on some movies that I hadn't seen in a while. I watched the Hudsucker Proxy by the Coen brothers,
Okay.
which I haven't seen in probably 30 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Telling my age. And then War Games, which I had actually never seen. One of Matthew Broderick's very first movies. Very enjoyable. I recommend that one.
Wow. Yeah, you did do some throwbacks. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. Well done. Okay. Well, good. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy when it gets so hot. Like, especially when you have a kid or kids, like really makes things challenging because they're obviously so bored in the house. But it's like, even if you want to go to like their indoor playgrounds or the mall, everything's just packed. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's the heat. Here we are complaining in LA, as we always do, complain about the weather, and it's always great. But anyway, show is always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. It's going to get you a welcome bonus on your first deposit. Put in your first deposit, $50, get some free money. Put in $10. You can put in, I think the minimum is 10. So, and you get free money to play with. Matthew Stafford, MVP. Maybe didn't look like it yesterday, but maybe that'll help the odds even more in your favor and you can win more. So we like that one. We like the Matthew Stafford MVP odds or the Rams over under 8.5. All that can be done at betonline.ag. Tell them the guys at the LAFB network sent you. So let's start with this rough outing down at the Bolt in El Segundo. Rams got to leave the confines of LMU for a little bit, go to the Chargers' new facility. I'm sure they were bummed to be there, see their nice facility, and the Rams one is now delayed 5 or 6 days, so they'll be back at LMU, or they were back there today, instead of going to their new facility, which will happen. It will happen before the season starts. They'll be in their shiny new place in Woodland Hills. But practice, reportedly, we were not there, unfortunately, but did not go great for the Rams. Obviously, we know about the injuries. We can touch on them again maybe in a minute, but 6 turnovers from the offense. Let's start with this, Skinny, because 2 weeks now into camp, the offense, as you've said and written about and reported, hasn't looked great. We've said all along, not a concern. This is the strength of the team. They'll get it figured out. It's better news that the defense is looking good. But now against other competition, looks real bad. Are you concerned, or is this just a product of all the injuries and it's just rust and new players in the system that shouldn't actually be starting?
I'm not wholly concerned. I'm speaking of War Games. I'm not at a DEFCON 1, which is the highest, not the other way around. Five is the lowest. I'm not at a 1 currently. But I've moved to a 4. I think that I wrote a piece about reasons why not to be freaked out by this whole thing, reasons to stay calm. And the Rams are historically great at preventing and rehabbing from injuries. So put your hat on that, guys, that these injuries, while didn't help them on Saturday or on Sunday against the Chargers in a practice, you know, it doesn't, all of them are week to week at this point. Nobody's out. Nobody's going to miss a whole bunch of the season, if anything. So everybody just take a big breath on the injury front. Also, McVay is continually changing his offense, and I think this is going to be a bigger change than we've seen in the past. We saw a lot more 12 personnel out there. We saw, they're moving pieces around, and they're switching things up. So, I mean, I'm not trying to pet you guys' head and tell you everything's going to be just fine, but these are legitimate things. A couple years ago, Mahomes goes out there, Patrick Mahomes goes out there, throws a bunch of picks in practice, and everybody freaks out. Is he cooked already? Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. They're trying new things out there. It happens across the league. If you're trying new things, you're going to throw some interceptions. A lot of these were bobbled passes, deflected passes that got intercepted. There's a Blake Corum turnover where he fumbled the ball. Obviously, you don't want to see something like that. That's a real life thing, maybe, but he's in a practice mode. Maybe he's not securing that ball as well as you would in a game situation. But I'm not, like I said, not DEFCON 1, maybe 3, probably 4 is where I probably am. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think overall, based on what we've been able to surmise just from, reading other people's tweets and hearing through the grapevine of everything that happened. Yeah, I think it's more of okay, they definitely have more work than maybe was expected to do in these final 2 weeks 3 weeks before the season kicks off in September. Obviously, most importantly, get healthy. I think you spend big on the offensive line, and 3 of those guys, I mean, I know they didn't spend for Alaric yet, but he's slated to be your starting left tackle. 3 of your starting 5 are not in. That is a problem. And I think we said that back in March, all right, this offensive line looks great, but you spent a lot on guys that have some injury history and whatnot. And if that continues in trend, well, then that spending and that ROI is not going to look good. Now, we're not there yet. It's early, and some of these guys they're even keeping out, probably if week 1 was tomorrow, probably could play based on kind of some of the language that McVay has used and the severity. But my question for you is this, and as everyone knows that watched our last episode, I was actually at Chargers camp last week, just got invited to check it out. It was intense. I mean, the way Jim Harbaugh runs things and with Jesse Minter as defensive coordinator, it was an intense practice in a good way. Now, my piece that I was going to write on that is how sustainable is that with pro athletes? You hear about even when he was with the Niners by year 3 and 4, he was kind of weighing on players. That's just not the way the NFL does things. But in year 1 with the Chargers, and obviously we're not talking a lot about the Chargers, but in year 1, it's the right thing for their culture change. But it was high octane. Music was off. No music. So it was straight to business. Coaches yelling, players yelling, everything verbalizing. When you're done with one thing, 11-11, boom, it was sprinting to the next thing. Rams camp, has it been intense? Does it feel lackadaisical? Is this maybe why some of the miscues were happening? Or was it just maybe the Chargers were just fired up and the defense was a little bit more intense, but not because the Rams have been practicing badly or anything? Is there any correlation to that, or was it just a one-off thing, you think?
I mean, there is a difference between how you're telling me the Chargers conduct their practices and how the Rams conduct their practices. The Rams, I would say that they're moving at a good clip, but it's more of a well-oiled machine than kind of like a military operation. I saw a video of the Chargers guys flipping over these. They're basically replaced old, tractor tires that, these other kind of sleds that they were working with. There's not a lot of that. McVay is very focused on, the energy being high and being good, but there's a lot of days where they feel like, the players are happy to be out there. It doesn't seem like anybody's, gotten their wrists slapped for, minor violations here or there, except for maybe Bobby Brown, as we know. But, he wants the energy to be good, but not necessarily an intensity where people are going out there getting themselves hurt, which, obviously guys are still getting themselves hurt out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't chalk it up to that. Another reason to not be concerned is people aren't talking about how bad the Rams defense looked. So what that means is they held up pretty well. Now
Yeah.
this is a physical front that the Chargers put out there. They have 3 first rounders, 3 top 20 guys. And there's no reports that, Gus Edwards was running all over the field. J.K. Dobbins was running all over the field. Joe Alt was pushing these guys all around. So that's another thing that, the energy that they brought throughout training camp, that translated as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's something that, to not be worried about, it seems like that's a good thing. We even had a turnover of our own. The Rams picked up a turnover of their own.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Curl came up with one. Cam Kitchens also came up with a big play, and he's had a really great camp. I tweeted out that he has this intensity about his training. In every drill that he's super focused. So there's reasons for optimism in that. So I wouldn't chalk it up to a lack of good practicing on the side of the Rams.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Just wanted to ask, since you've been there and witnessed it, and yeah, about the defense now. Small asterisks, no Justin Herbert, so they're going up against Easton Stick, but still, all indications where the Rams defense looks great. Also, I mean, the big observation from I think some of the national guys that were there was defense won the day on both teams. It was just a good defensive performance. And again, we'll keep harping about it. This was the unknown of the team, and the fact that the defense all camp, by your indication, by articles you've written, by what we've heard from others, is the defense has looked really, really solid. And I think that's really exciting because as bad as maybe Sunday was, I mean, this Rams offense is going to get it figured out as long as they get healthy. Matthew Stafford is going to be just fine. They're trying new things in practice, as we know, I've been at too. They run a lot of install days, meaning they are not even actually throwing the football sometimes. And so sometimes, it's going to take some time to really get in the groove and get that chemistry back. But the positives is, that you've talked about. I think the receiving core looks deeper than maybe many of us thought. Jordan Whittingham has looked at Whittington. I always want to say Whittingham. Whittington has looked really good. They've maybe found another gem in the late rounds at the receiver position. Running backs, aside from the fumble you mentioned, I think have looked good. So the big question is just can they get healthy on the offensive line? But the fact that the defense has been intense, has been fired up, I think is extremely exciting, and Rams fans should be excited about that. And I want to ask you something about a specific player. And you've mentioned him, I think 2 episodes ago, but certainly you've written about him. But our guy, friend of the show, Quentin Lake, seems like has been kind of a real clear winner at camp and will have a really bigger role within this defense and kind of is playing that pseudo star role that Brandon Staley kind of used. And obviously it'll be a little different, I'm sure, in the Chris Shula system. But what can you tell us about Quentin Lake? Because everything you've been saying and I've been hearing is that this guy's made that leap from being a 6th round draft pick to now he's going to be not just on the field quite a bit, but maybe the most of any defensive player.
Yeah, that's a great point. Not one I had really considered, but you got to feel bad for him in a way because his mettle is being tested by one of the best. He's going up against Cooper Kupp at training. He went up against Cooper Kupp over and over again at training camp. And that's not an easy assignment, but that's the kind of thing that makes a guy earn that starting spot. And he was out there a ton. He was out there sometimes on both squads. And moving around in different functions. So yeah, I mean, can't say enough of good things about that. And it looked like as the days progressed, he and Cooper Kupp started jawing at each other a bit, which is always funny. But that's a sign of mutual respect. And Kupp would always give him a nice tap on the helmet or on the booty after each play if he got the better of him or if one won out or the other one. So earning Cooper Kupp's respect is not an easy one. He talks about Puka Nacua, and DeMarcus Robinson. You don't hear him Cooper Kupp talking about the rest of the guys. He's allowing them their time to come up and rise up. And so, yeah, I think in terms of Quentin Lake, he's going to get a lot of playing time at the very least, and he's going up against the very best. So you got to like his chances out there against some of those other slot receivers.
Love it. And so that would indicate, as you just said, the majority of his time has been kind of in that slot, nickel star role, correct? From what you've seen. Yeah.
And they'll switch off here and there. We haven't brought him up yet, but I wanted to talk about on Saturday this amazing play by Puka Nacua with Tre'Davious White, which all accounts of Tre'Davious White have been he's incredibly smart. He's an incredibly savvy player, and and a wily guy, super competitive too. That's something else I learned about him as well, which has kind of been missing from the secondary since Jalen Ramsey left. But a lot like Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua was, running a route. He pointed towards taking the inside and went on the outside, and he got Tre'Davious White to just completely buy into that inside route and took the outside and took it for a big gain. So I changed the subject to Puka Nacua, but unfortunately, a bit banged up now.
Yeah, now week to week with a knee, correct? That's
bruised knee is what I saw.
Yeah. Which, at least there's no like ligament damage or soft tissue stuff. It's a bruise, which is painful, but it's doesn't seem like there's any long-term damage or anything like that. So he should be back, and I'm sure it's just more of an abundance of caution to make sure he's 100%. Last thing you want to go into the season with any of your receiving core kind of banged up. So based on what you've seen, then rest of camp, it's kind of Demarcus Robinson's show for wide receiver too. Yeah.
I would imagine so. I mean, in that third position, that'll be the interesting thing to see is who they trot out there for that in the rest of the practices anyway. Obviously, with the preseason games, they're just not going to start anybody that has any value.
Yeah.
Well, not any value, but any starters out there.
Yeah. I mean, this is what's exciting. I think you never want to see injuries, but because none of these are season threatening, this is the time where the guys that are clawing to make it have their real opportunity to shine. And obviously, this is the situation Puka Nacua was in last year. Cooper Kupp gets hurt in training camp, misses a lot of time. That means more reps. It just goes down the line. Everyone kind of slots up higher. You get more reps, and Puka Nacua got more reps, got more practice with Stafford, and obviously we saw him explode onto the scene in week 1 against Seattle. So this is an opportunity for Tyler Johnson, for Jordan Whittington, for some of these younger guys to now have more. Tutu needs it more than anybody, right? Tutu Atwell. Sure. And so now it's their opportunity to really say, okay, we know what Puka is. Like we obviously there's ability for him to get better, but it's the same scheme overall, minus some wrinkles, same quarterback connection. Like him missing 3 weeks is not going to be like catastrophic. So now is that chance for these newer guys to get more reps and make this unit more well-rounded. So I'm not saying I want the guy, glad he got injured. It's better that he got injured. But if you're looking at it from a glass half full situation, it does in a way enhance the ability of the rest of the room to get better. So then when you go into week 1, you have 6 to 7 guys that can all play at a high level because they've gotten those reps necessary. Whereas if you hadn't had that and everyone stayed healthy, you might have 3 to 4 guys, and those bottom 5 or 6 are really, really rusty because they haven't really done much outside of a couple screenplays from Steady B or something. So maybe I'm just being glass half full. I don't know.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up though, and get your DEFCON rating for this.
Okay.
Offensive line depth. Ostensibly, it sounded like the Chargers were just in the backfield constantly, and obviously you got Mack, you got Khalil Mack, you got Joey Bosa, but the interior of that line isn't impressive. In terms of just kind of name recognition. He also got Bud Dupree there and Tui Pelotu, and so they got a nice pass rush, but I'm having a little bit of 2022 PTSD thinking about these injuries already. And, as great of a guy as McVay is, and he's always fantastic with the media, around injuries, he's always very guarded for good reasons. There's a competitive advantage that can be gained from knowledge about how long guys are out, what they're going to miss and what they're not going to miss. But everybody's kind of week to week right now. But in his post practice press conference, when he was asked about the offensive line injuries, he didn't seem happy to be answering that question. What's your DEFCON on offensive line?
I mean, this can obviously change, but based on what we've seen and heard, like I might be at a 2. DEFCON 2. Now we're not going 1 yet, but
yeah,
this is the room. And again, you're only as good sometimes as your depth, right? Like that the best teams in football that are there at the end are typically the healthiest or the deepest. I know that sounds so cliche, but it's the truth. Either the teams that stay healthy or they have that great depth that even if they get banged up, they don't miss too much of a beat. And, losing 3 of your 5 starters, that's asking a lot of your depth. But based on what we've heard is it's been like almost catastrophic in terms of just what the offensive line has been able to do in terms of, just giving Matthew Stafford any kind of protection. And that obviously alluded to or went to 6 turnovers in the scrimmage. So, when you just look at the likes of, Logan Bruss, I don't think we've heard much about his progression. Warren McClendon, nice piece, but a late round draft pick from last year. Bo Limmer and KV Levinston, both rookies this year. So, I mean, your true depth is essentially Joe Noteboom.
Yeah.
And then guys, and I hate saying that because it sounds disrespectful, but there's no like proven commodity after the starting 5 except for Joe Noteboom, which if we're calling him the proven commodity, that's a little concerning. There's a little DEFCON 3-2 vibes there. So if these young guys can really mature and grow quickly, and if guys like Logan Bruss can be the guy they thought he was when they drafted him, then this can certainly improve. But when you've spent all the money you have on offense, specifically on the offensive line, and that as of right now, 2.5 weeks in the training camp is far and away your weakest unit, injuries or not, whatever the reason is for it, if that's the weakest unit, it's not great. It's not great. Yeah. And this could be, I would not be shocked if this is like a Kevin Dotson situation. Remember, they brought Kevin Dotson in last year during training camp. Like, there could certainly be a situation where they say, you know what, either these injuries could be something that could linger between the 3 starters out, or we just got to have depth in case something else happens. And I would not be shocked at all if they go out and get a free agent or make a trade with a late round pick for a bubble player that a team maybe is too deep at the position like the Steelers were last year. So long-winded answer, but yeah, as of right now, I think it's a DEFCON 2.
Yeah, I find it hard to disagree with that. And I can't tell if it's just because I'm still thinking about how catastrophic 2022 was. But, you think about Les Snead thinking in bets. They made a big bet on this offensive line. Spent a lot of money at it. Big bet on Jonah Jackson. Injured player, hurt his meniscus, I think, as you said before. Not what he's injured with now, a shoulder injury. But it's a big bet, and when you bet big, you can lose big too. So yeah, I think I'm right there with you, where I don't feel great about the depth. And we saw that they went out and got Jerry Jacobs after they lost Darian Kendrick. We still don't know exactly. Darius Williams is still called week to week. No concrete update on him that I've heard. So, they're obviously willing to do that. I haven't looked at the free agents recently, but obviously those free agents have been picked through. But there's got to be guys better out there than some of the depth pieces and inexperienced pieces. That's probably the biggest thing. Get somebody who was just in there with some experience.
Yeah. I mean, just to throw some names out there. I mean, first for Brian Allen's out there. I know Rams fans don't love Brian Allen, but he knows the offense, knows the team. Like, he's a better depth piece than what they got right now. But there's other names. I know Connor Williams was just visiting with the Ravens today. He's only 27 years old, has some playing experience. Like, that's a name out there. If we're not looking at just like the old heads that potentially, but DJ Humphries, 31, he's a left tackle that could come in and even compete with Alaric Jackson for that starting spot, depending on his health. Just throwing a few more out here. You got Riley Reif. You got Scott Quessenberry. You got Billy Turner, who's a swing tackle that can also play guard. So, I mean, there's names out there they could certainly go at. And like I said, I mean, Kevin Dotson was a trade last year, wasn't even a free agent. So you never know if there's that fringe guy that one team's like, man, this guy's fringe. We could probably get some value out of him because he could play somewhere. He's just not quite good enough to crack our 5, and our depth is good. So yeah, I would not be shocked. I honestly, at this point, hope Les Snead's on the phones, kind of doing some things, and hopefully we hear sometime this week that one of these guys is visiting, or whatnot, just to at least, even if it's just camp depth, and these guys get healthy and we're good. But just because a lot of times, remember they talked about there were days that they basically gave Aaron Donald off so he didn't wreck the practice because they couldn't accomplish things on offense. It
Yeah.
sounds like after what happened yesterday, like the defense can potentially just wreck the practice because the offense can't do anything because the offensive line is not giving time. And you got to have those reps, and you can't just like throw against air. Like you need live reps, but if your quarterback doesn't have time to do anything, then you're definitely not going to be ready for week one. So yeah, maybe let's hear from everyone in the comments. How is everyone else feeling? But I don't want to be I'm usually not a doom and gloom guy, but it just, this is the unit that was supposed to be the best unit by far on this team. And right now it is by far the worst.
Yeah, I've written it. I've said it before. This team is going to go how this offensive line goes. I'm convinced of it. They're gonna run the ball a lot. They got to protect Stafford. We'll talk about this interesting comments that he made about his thumb injury here in a little bit. But if you don't believe it's the offensive line that's going to control how this team goes, it's going to be Stafford if it's not the offensive line. Judging how, the reports that are coming out about Jimmy Garoppolo and what I've seen with my own two eyes about Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL as of today for me. I'm not signing him to a contract to lead my team to 7 or 8 wins or whatever, if he could even get to that.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say about the offensive line, because you can't, of course, injuries are bad luck. It is what it is, right? Like it's not anyone's fault per se. But because these are happening early, it gives you the opportunity to be better prepared for those injuries. And if you're seeing right now that the depth is not good, then that tells you, oh, we should change that before the season starts in case these injuries happen again. If they do nothing and they knew, and again, it's been one reportedly really bad. You were out there, the rest, it didn't look as bad as probably it did against the Chargers, but so we'll need to see more as it progresses. But if they know it's that bad and do nothing, and then you lose 1 or 2 guys in the offensive line this season, and we see a huge regression because of that, well, then it is someone's fault because they knew what was behind the starting 5 and did nothing to change it. So hopefully we're not there yet. Just want to get that last thing out.
Well, keep an eye out for the forthcoming article discussing possible Rams trades and free agent acquisitions.
There you go.
It'll come out tonight, probably.
Man, a little cookie trail for you.
Yeah.
So real quick before we get to Stafford and what you just wrote about this thumb injury last year that maybe we all didn't know as serious as it was. You alluded to it and just quickly. We've talked about it, I think, every show, but it's worth talking about. I think in this backup room. I mean, for years, this has always been arguably one of the weakest backup rooms in the NFL. And we've seen it. If Jared Goff or Matthew Stafford got hurt, typically the team did not progress positively like we've seen other teams have. And again, when you spend and allocate money towards certain positions, you don't have a lot left over for a decent backup. I get that. Going into this year, though, they spent some money, not a lot, but spent a little bit more on a vet presence in Jimmy G. We know they really like Stetson Bennett and the prospect of his potential. Should there be a concern of what's behind Matthew Stafford? Is Stetson Bennett any closer to maybe even overthrowing Jimmy Garoppolo? And maybe they just release Garoppolo and make it out of camp. Is that a possibility of happening?
I don't like Garoppolo as a backup. I don't like him as a starter, but he's still better than Stetson Bennett. It's a little bit hard to tell because once you're operating with the third, let's call them the third string offensive line, third string receivers, third string running backs, but Stetson Bennett is still off on some of his throws, still relying on his legs instead of hitting the open guy. Speaking of Jordan Whittington, there was 2 back-to-back occasions where Whittington was open for a nice gain. Obviously, we don't know the play call, what the coaches are telling him to do, or what he should be looking at there. But Jimmy Garoppolo can still hit passes, over the middle, short passes. He's a check down king, is what he looked like with the second team. So I don't love it, but again, let's keep Stafford upright. Let's make sure he's not getting hit every game, and we'll be golden. And then we won't have to practice effed any longer.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing they can, in my opinion, there's nothing they can or should do to change the quarterback room. They made their bed. This is the group, whether it's Garoppolo or Bennett as the backup. And if Stafford goes down, I mean, that's probably the season anyway. So I don't care who's still out there as a backup, unless they make some like crazy trade. But let's knock on wood, that's not going to happen. But speaking of injuries, just to backtrack a little bit, you just wrote about on LAFBnetwork.com. You can find it there. Stafford's thumb injury last year that knocked him out for, obviously the big game that our backup, Brett Rippon, like was basically non-existent against the Packers. I don't think any of us knew the severity of that. I'll just toss it to you. Like, you were able to dig in a little more. Like, this was a legit, could have been potentially really bad injury.
Well, that's what he thought, So in the Cowboys game, week 8, hurts his thumb. Now, I kind of remember him whacking it on somebody or getting hit by a player. There's a great photo of Micah Parsons sacking Stafford with his hand kind of in a bad position, but I can't remember if it happened on that or on the 2-point conversion where it was a jet sweep to Puka Nacua, which ended up as a reverse to Tutu Atwell, who throws it to Stafford, who catches it, 2-point conversion. But that's his last play of the game. He comes out of the game at that point, with a bloodied elbow and an injured thumb. And this is an interview with Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer, and Stafford told Albert Breer after the physical exam on the sidelines, he said it wasn't pretty. That's what Stafford said, and that he was wondering at that point if his season or if his career was over from this injury. Now, he misses the Green Bay game. They lose that game. Oh, going back to the Cowboys game, that 2-point conversion was to get to 17-33. Yeah. So if that's when it happened, shame on you. Just put Rippon in at that point. I mean, but they go on to lose to Green Bay. Bye week, he's back in the game, but he's in a splint at that point for 6 weeks. He plays in that splint. They go 5-1 in that time. 7-1 ultimately. But and then that one game against the Ravens, they nearly won, which that obviously horseshoes and hand grenades. But and he was actually fantastic in that time. He had a 69% completion percentage in those 6 games. His EPA in the league was 3rd best among all quarterbacks. And if you compare that completion percentage to his season completion percentage, he threw like 62.5% completion percentage on the 2023 season. So he actually played better. He threw 11 interceptions, only 2 in that time. And so obviously Stafford playing well in that time, but also they're doing a good job protecting him and giving him easier completions, a lot more handoffs probably. I didn't look into that, but just fascinating that, it wasn't until after the physical or the examination that included imaging that they were able to determine that they weren't going to have to shut him down, that they were just going to have to put him in a splint. But I mean, could you imagine if it was as bad as they had as Stafford at least anticipated at that very point? And just like, I mean, think about your career flashing before your eyes on the sidelines. Wow, what a moment that we didn't hear about until just now, thanks to Albert Breer.
Yeah, wild. I mean, had that been the case, they would have either gotten Brock Bowers without trading up like they wanted to, or they would have been drafting Michael Penix Jr. or JJ McCarthy or one of those quarterbacks because his career, Matthew, may have been done for good. But no, I think it's just a testament. I mean, that dude's he's got to be one of the toughest football players out there for sure. Quarterbacks. I mean, I don't know a quarterback that's tougher than him. I mean, the stuff he's played through. I mean, even just playing with a splint through those, and he missed one game
on his throwing hand. Yeah, and got better ostensibly.
Yeah, got better. Like, the toughness that he has is unreal. That has to be when you're a player, because everyone. I'm not saying the players don't like the quarterback, but the quarterback is like, gets all the special privileges, makes 3 times as much as everyone else on the team. All the notoriety, all the praise. So everyone obviously loves their quarterback, and you need a good quarterback to win. But, I'm sure behind the scenes, that's the guy they like, he's the pretty boy, whatever. I feel like Stafford's not, no one thinks that. They're like, no, this guy's like in the trenches with us, just tough as nails, like leaves it all out there every single week, will give his everything to help this team win. And that's just further indication. we've all known that dating back to his time in Detroit, but I don't think that has got enough shine that what he did with that injury and them going 7-1 and should have probably beat the Lions in that first game, or not to any fault of Stafford, could have beat the Lions. And unfortunate.
Yeah, truly amazing, and kind of wrap that whole article up is the upshot of the whole thing is he's feeling very healthy this year.
That's all that matters.
Healthiest he's felt in a long time, obviously, because he suffered the back injury, the concussion, and dealt with those weird elbow injuries all throughout 2022. So, like we said, MVP Stafford, go bet it. Don't hold us accountable if you lose, but we think that's a smart bet. A healthy Stafford, and if they can keep him there, which all of our conversations together, get that offensive line looking good for all of our sake, including Stafford's.
Exactly. That's what it's all going to come down to, right? Is how this offensive line looks, and without it, they may be shutting Stafford down, not by his accord, but just like, this is not going to be what MVP right now. Has the line moved? What do you think Stafford is on betonline.ag?
Well, I feel like he was plus 2,500.
I think he was. It has now changed.
Oh, what's the move? Is the movement on all this offensive line injury? I wonder. Is it? I'm going to say it's gone. It's gotten worse. And 3,500
plus 5,000.
Ooh, wow!
Tied for, I think that's 19th. So you bet $100, you win $5,000 at betonline.ag plus 5,000. Is that? That's in with this. Is that a respect thing, or is that truly just like, hey, this offensive line is banged up? Puka Nacua is banged up. Because now's the time to bet on it, I guess, because those guys are seemingly going to get healthy again.
Like I've said multiple times, I'm not a betting man, but when there's this kind of possibility, when there's this kind of upside, wets my palate.
I'm doing it after the show. I've already done it. I've already done it at the plus 2,500. Now I'm going to throw down more on the plus 5,000.
If we're not going to put our money, let me get that right. If we're not going to put our money where our mouth is, when we're telling people to do this, come on. I'm going to place my very first sports bet.
Like we cover USC as well, obviously, and I'm plugged in with USC. Miller Moss's odds to win the Heisman, which there's one thing for him, it's almost more of a respect because he plays for Lincoln Riley, who's had 3 Heisman Trophy winners, but has started one game. And his odds to win the Heisman against a lot more players is plus 3,300. Better than Stafford's plus 5,000 to win MVP. Like, wild.
Wow. Yeah, that just shows you how bad the college football quarterbacks are going to be this year. It seems
that
like
too, I guess. Yeah.
maybe that's it.
Miller Moss hasn't even been technically named the starter yet. Technically, he's going to, but Jaden Maeva is still pushing for that job too in fall camp. So, anyway. Anything else? We'll be back, obviously, on Thursday for more camp coverage. But anything lastly you need to add from your time out there?
No, I don't think so. If you want more great coverage from LAFB, just go hit up the Rams admin on Twitter and tell them you want to see more LAFB credentialed joint practice access.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought you meant like the Rams LAFB admin. I'm like, oh, you mean hit me up?
No.
The Los Angeles Rams admin. Yeah.
Agreed. The Los Angeles Rams admin. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. So, well, Skinny T, thanks as always for great work, great coverage, great camaraderie, hanging out with me. Peak heat as always on the microphone. So well done. Thank you all for hanging out with us. He is Skinny T at RL Anderson LAFB is on Twitter. I am at Ryan Dyrud LAFB. At LAFB Network is the main account, LAFBnetwork.com. And if you're on YouTube, Rams LAFB is the channel. We'd love if you'd hit that like and subscribe. That certainly helps us out a lot. But everyone, enjoy your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever you're listening. We'll be back on Thursday for more Los Angeles Rams training camp coverage. Everyone be well. Talk to you soon.